All right, let's jump right into this explainer where we're going to unpack the invisible forces that dictate literally everything around us, from the orbit of massive planets down to a falling sheet of paper. You experience these forces every single second of your life, but today we're going to make the invisible visible.
Here is what we're covering today. First, our place in the universe. Second, the universal law of gravitation. Third, Earth's gravity and weight. Fourth, freefall and weightlessness. And finally, the impact of air resistance.
Starting off with Section 1, our place in the universe, moving from an Earth-centric to a Sun-centric view.
To really wrap our heads around gravity, humanity first had to completely fix our geometry. That massive historical shift from the Ptolemaic geocentric theory, where everyone thought Earth was the center of everything, to the heliocentric model, wasn't just about realizing we orbit the sun. It was absolutely crucial. It was the first real step to unlocking the underlying mechanics of how all these celestial bodies actually interact. Getting that geometry right set the entire stage for figuring out how the whole shebang works.
Moving to Section 2, the universal law of gravitation and Newton's breakthrough in 1687.
So, what actually keeps all those planets orbiting the sun? I mean, why don't they just shoot off into the dark void of space in a straight line? Well, the answer is gravitation. That's the force of attraction between any two bodies. When Isaac Newton put this out there in 1687, he realized this wasn't just some special rule for planets and stars. It means every single object in the universe is actively attracting every other object. No exceptions.
Newton's universal law of gravitation elegantly states that this attractive force is directly tied to the product of the two masses and inversely tied to the square of the distance between their centers. Basically, this one single equation unites the entire cosmos. It proves the force depends on exactly two things: how massive the objects are and how far apart they're sitting.
Here is where it gets really wild in practice. Let's say you take two objects and double both of their masses. Boom! The gravitational force between them literally quadruples. It becomes 4 times as strong. But because of that inverse square law, if you keep the masses exactly the same and just double the distance between them, the force drops to 1/4 of what it was. Distance weakens that pull incredibly fast.
Now, we throw these words around a lot in everyday life, but it's super important we spot the distinction in physics. Gravitation is that grand universal attraction between any two bodies anywhere in the universe. Gravity, on the other hand, specifically defines the force a planet, like our Earth, uses to pull objects toward its center. Gravity depends entirely on the mass and radius of that specific planet.
And this exact distinction totally carries over into the math. Little g represents the localized acceleration produced on a falling body under the influence of gravity. We measure that in meters per second squared. Big G, however, is the universal gravitational constant. It's a fixed, unchanging value across the entire universe, representing the attraction between unit masses separated by a unit distance. So think of big G as the constant universal rule, and little g as the local on-the-ground effect.
Section 3, Earth's gravity and weight. Let's bring this down to Earth. When Earth's massive gravity pulls down on your specific body mass, the result is what we call your weight. Actually, scratch that. People often think weight is just mass, but it's not. Because weight equals mass times acceleration due to gravity, weight is a force, and we measure it in newtons. Let's crunch the numbers on that. If we take Earth's enormous mass, which is roughly 6 times 10 to the 24th kilograms, and its radius of 6,380 kilometers, and we plug all that into our formula, we can precisely calculate that a standard 1 kilogram mass weighs exactly 9.83 newtons right here on the surface. But get this is a crazy fact. Your weight actually changes depending on exactly where you're standing on the globe. Our Earth is not a perfect, smooth sphere. It actually bulges out at the equator and flattens a bit at the poles. Because the radius is shorter at the poles, you're physically closer to the center of the Earth's mass. That means little g, and therefore your weight, is actually slightly higher at the poles, clocking in at 9.82 meters per second squared compared to the equator where it drops to 9.78. On to Section 4, Freefall and Weightlessness, or what happens when gravity acts alone.
So what happens if gravity is the absolute only force acting on something? Well, the math does something totally counterintuitive here. When we equate Newton's law of gravitation with his second law of motion, the mass of the falling object cancels out entirely. Acceleration due to gravity doesn't care about mass at all. That means a falling feather and a solid gold coin would accelerate at the exact same rate in a perfect vacuum.
And if you are falling perfectly freely, where your acceleration exactly matches gravity, you achieve weightlessness. Your weight literally hits zero. You don't have to be out in deep space for this. It just requires your reaction force to drop to zero. This happens if you're in true freefall or, inside an orbiting spacecraft where an astronaut exerts zero force against the craft itself.
Finally, Section 5, the impact of air resistance, our atmospheric shield.
Of course, unless you're hanging out in that spacecraft, we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a thick, swirling atmosphere. You can literally test this at your desk right now. If acceleration due to gravity ignores mass, why does a flat sheet of paper float so slowly to the ground, while a crumpled-up paper ball drops like a rock, even though they weigh the exact same amount? It's all about surface area. The flat sheet has way more surface area, creating much greater air resistance, which is an opposing upward force that slows it down. And hey, this is the exact same physics that saves lives. Why don't parachutists get hurt when they jump out of a perfectly good airplane? By purposefully opening up a massive canopy, they artificially expand their surface area to extreme levels. They are maximizing air resistance to significantly drop their acceleration, allowing them to just gently float to the Earth instead of being in a terrifying freefall.
But this atmospheric friction isn't just a cushion, it's a literal shield. When rocks from space hurtle into our atmosphere at immense, terrifying speeds, the incredible friction of air resistance generates massive amounts of heat. This heat causes those meteors to literally burn up, and that's what we see as those beautiful streaks of light shooting across the night sky. They safely disintegrate before they can ever strike the ground.
So air resistance is kind of a double-edged sword for human engineering. On the downside, air friction makes high-speed flight incredibly difficult and super energy-intensive. But on the flip side, without it, aircraft couldn't generate the lift needed to fly in the first place, paratroopers couldn't land, and our planet would be constantly brutally bombarded by space debris and deadly, oversized hail.
I want to leave you with a question to chew on. If gravity constantly pulls us down, but air resistance is the only reason we can fly or even survive falling objects, just how delicate is this invisible balance of forces keeping us alive right now? When you step outside today, realize you aren't just standing there. You're participating in a massive, universal equation. From the gravity holding your feet to the floor to the exact density of the air protecting our cities, everything around you is locked in a perfect, invisible mathematical dance, just waiting to be understood. Keep looking up and keep questioning the forces around you.